the community has to get some jobs, some employment here. But this has always been a conflict with SIU or with people who have those skills to work together. He said, well, I guess you should move into some vocational areas. I think growing up in East St. Louis prepared me in some ways in that it made me individually have a stronger personality. I decided very early that I would not be, that I was equal to the European community, and that not only was I equal to them, in some areas I was even superior, and I could be superior, and that because in East St. Louis I did run track, and I ran a 400 meter, and that kind of gave me some strength as to what kind of physical ability I had. And I think when I first went to college at the University of Illinois, I met some other blacks from other places who were able to tell me kind of what I was running into. For example, I remember going into a meeting with a counselor on the campus my freshman year. I'd only been there about a couple of months, and there was a test that you had to take at that time. And that test was the kind of a test in which you had questions that if you were in an all-black school, you probably didn't know. But if you were in certain white schools, you would know. So it was a kind of a screen test. And most blacks had flunked that test, or failed that test. So I took it, but at the time, University of Illinois, if you graduated from high school, they had to accept you, but they didn't have to keep you. So I went to the counselor, and he walked in and said, I sat down. He said, well, I guess you should move into some vocational areas. And I said, well, why? He said, well, your people aren't ready for these kind of, places like University of Illinois. And I said, well, I've just gotten my first scores, and I had 3 B's and 1 C. And I had a B in Latin, because I had a good Latin teacher in high school. So I was, and so she looked at this and said, oh, did somebody take the test for you? I said, no. He said, oh, okay, well, you can leave. So I came out and I went to where I was living, and I was living in a black fraternity house at that time. And I told them, they said, well, yeah, this is the way they treat us here. And that's the reason I stayed about another year, then I transferred down to Carbondale from University of Illinois. So you had that, so that told me that the rest of my life, I'm probably going to have to confront the white community because because this is a battle, and it has been. It has been. But it also meant that I got to know people like Dick Gregory, and who were having the same problems, and Malcolm X, and all of these people like that, and decided very early that I was going to just take on the community, and show them that I was as good as they were, and better in some ways, and that basically everybody was really equal, It's based on what you want to do and how much you want to push. But this has always been a conflict. You know, even except when my wife was married at that time, we were married for this white lady for 20 years, and we had our conflicts, you know. And but I just have to always refuse to be anything but the best that I could be. But I think it made a difference because at that time, East St. Louis reached about close to 100,000 people, and right now it's only about maybe 15, 16,000. And the riot, I guess after that, there began some integration and things began to take place, but it really, I guess, reached its peak at around 1930, which you had so many factories here, and it was probably because of the World War II, and so you had factories that was producing. But after that, some of the factories began to move south, to move away from East St. Louis, and it never really gained its position after that, even though we've tried. But you still have had that racist element because East St. Louis is obviously geographically almost in the center of the United States, so it's an ideal place that you would think that factories would be coming. But the fact that this was a black community and white people were leaving here, that this obviously resulted in some white businesses not coming to a black community. Because as we began to integrate, when blacks would move into a white community, whites immediately began to sell their homes. And because the image was that, you know, you're going to be losing money and you don't want to be living next to, you know, to black people. And this, you still find this, there's some integration, but now it's, much of it is economic. You know, if you have enough money, you could move into certain places, but with the economic difference between black and white, which you still have in the United States, you still have white communities. But East St. Louis, I think there are a lot of changes. One, we need to get, the community has to get some jobs, some employment here. And I'm hoping that either we can get somebody like Amazon, some company to move in here where people can get jobs. And I'm hoping also that the universities, as Edwardsville or the branch here, can develop more technical skills for the people here. A couple of times, people from here have talked about companies coming here, but you need a level of skills that they don't have here in terms of computer and technical kinds of things. And so I think this is something that's going to happen. I'm also contacting people from East St. Louis. I'm in contact with about 15 millionaires and 1 billionaire from East St. Louis who grew up here, but they're scattered all over the country. A lot of people know Ambassador Donald McHenry. He was a UN ambassador who was from here. And there are just a number of people, Harry Edwards, people know of him because I think in one of the Olympics where he had the people with their fists up in the air, he's from East St. Louis. We talk quite a bit. And so there's and people like Jackie Joyner, the Olympics stars, and there's just a number of people across the country who are college presidents and who are people like that who are originally from East St. Louis. But we just need to get together. So we're trying to get them to come together to develop a kind of an East St. Louis alumni. We're using that term based on a university kind of an image. And if they do, then we can create some things ourselves here. There's a new, we're looking now at possibility of trying to develop a system here that that would kind of change the image. East St. Louis still has an image of a high crime city, and they forget that the very first mayor of East St. Louis was white mayor, 1860 something, was assassinated. The first white mayor. And East St. Louis has had this reputation from its beginning, partly because St. Louis has been a very Catholic community, and until recently they had a 12 o'clock curfew. At 12 o'clock, all the bars had to close, which meant everybody came across the river to East St. Louis. And so that's where Ike and Tina Turner and these people, this is where their reputation was made, here. And, so we're hoping that if we can get some millionaires to come back here and get people involved like my wife, to try to change the image with her artwork and things like this. And, so if we can do that, then we can begin to get people moving back into this community. Well, certainly, we're looking now at some of the sites. For example, the first black school in East St. Louis, the building still exists. And we're looking at that school, 1886, I think. The building still exists. And there are buildings like the first banks, Catherine Dunham, the dancer, where she lived, and there's just a number of facilities that we're looking at that we really could turn into something special that people would want to come and see. And so we're trying to identify some of those and then kind of develop the upkeep of those buildings. Carbondale has been helping with one of the Catherine Dunham centers here, SIU, and so that's something that we want to do. And we're also looking at the possibility of getting SIU Edwardsville to expand in East St. Louis, because there are a number of really nice home places in East St. Louis. For example, you couldn't, if a house like this, if you had this house in most cities, you'd be talking, what, $300,000-$400,000? And you can get houses like this in East St. Louis for $30,000-$40,000. So there's that possibility. There are a number of possibilities here in terms of just the facilities. Well, we were looking for, when I first came back here, I was looking for a place, we were looking for a place that had space for the art that we had collected over the years and for her art. So we were looking for a place, and we just came across this particular facility. The price was right, and so everything was perfect, so we just moved into it, and we've been here about 20 years in this house. So she's done the major work on the house and made it look like a museum, and she's quite, and they sent her she's been to China, and the airport, Lambert Airport, sent her to do some work for them in Germany. So she's traveled around. But she always comes back here and works out of here, enjoys it. I think one of the things a lot of the young people want, one of the things that East St. Louis is noted for is that it's athletes. It still is one of the top places in the States for female track stars. Jackie Joyner, obviously, but it wins state and all these places almost every year. And as small as it is, it competes with Chicago and places like that. And there are still heroes. For example, would you believe that some years ago, East St. Louis chess team won state? And there's a fellow by the name of Kellen Winslow. If you follow football, you probably know who he is. Famous football star. He was on the chess team. So we've had those kind of things, but a lot of people don't know about it. They don't know about, when I mentioned some of the heroes, a lot of people don't know that McHenry, they know who he is, United Nations, but they don't know he's from East St. Louis. And there's ambassador to Morocco. was from East St. Louis. So you have these names, but East St. Louis has not, and there's something I would like to see SIUE do or help with, just changing the image of East St. Louis and getting the word out about who's doing what and things that are happening. And people who are around the country. The president of Cal State Los Angeles was from East St. Louis. I mean, just things like that, And ambassadors, and and who's been the first in so many different places. People from East St. Louis. Well, I think one of the things that we could do if we had, for example, the business schools, and particularly the arts craft schools in Edwardsville or in Carbondale, if they could help develop here with some of the young people or with the schools projects, because we can identify the young people who have special skills, but many of them with their special skills they don't have any contact. But if there could be a relationship with SIU or with people who have those skills to work together, and for example, I often ask kids, what's your interest? And some would say, well, business, whatever that might be, but there's really no connection. And I've talked to some of the people that I'm mentioning who will say, well, I can talk to kids on Zoom. But there's often no real connection here that the university might have where they could relate on Zoom after school or in the evenings or just whatever that might be. And another thing too, as I've mentioned often, language is very important and an opportunity. If these kids here, while they're in school, they have to learn a language anyway. That's part of getting out of high school. But if they were related in some way to people on campus, but who are from, like yourself, but who are from different places, or like you are, that kind of connection, which really doesn't exist, but it should. It should. People hear the word Pakistan. They hear the word Nigeria, maybe, but they probably never met anybody from there. So there's no discussion, or Turkey. There's no body from there. But why not? You're close. They're here. Why not have a dinner or a get together or just something in which all of a sudden they begin to think. And I've also found out too that some of the people I've talked to them about money for travel. Almost all of them, without exception, said yes, they could help. So during the summer, why not have some of these kids going to visit some of your countries? Because the kind of money I'm talking about, these people have, and it could be set up in a way in which could even be tax deductible. They could go and visit Pakistan or Turkey or Nigeria, and but again, that means that something has been set up to allow that to take place, and so why not?